Where are all the white videos at? You see all this? See all this? I got an upgrade, mate. I got the screen of green, red roses too. Got this lavalier mic on my lapel, which was a huge adventure to get working. But now I'm here. So let's do some shitty shit with the green screen shit that's gonna be really shitty shit. Here's something I really shouldn't have to say. I like diversity in film and media and books and shows, all of that stuff. But it has to be done right. And right now it's not being done right, no. The general narrative right now seems to be that people are opposed to diverse characters in games and books and films because racism. And they have to be there because otherwise people who share superficial traits with those characters can't identify with those characters and won't have any way of emotionally connecting to the story, and it's all gonna be bad. And then they're gonna shoot a bunch of people at some point. Aside from the fact that this is not really a premise I agree with in the first place, it also comes with numerous qualifications. You're not allowed to do tokenism, which is essentially, we're gonna just put diverse characters in there to appease the SJW mob. You can't do that, because apparently giving in to your audience's demands is racist. I'd argue tokenism is utter shite for entirely different reasons, but more on that later. You're also not allowed to put your diverse characters through any struggle at all, right? If your main character is supposed to be a girl who grew up on a desert world, ripping out fucking cables out of ancient spaceships, she better be a fucking elite pilot, better than a smuggler who's done this his entire life. She better be a better force user than someone who's been trained in that shit for years. Fuck suspension of disbelief. If your character isn't named Mary Sue, mate, you're done. You're a cunt. You're a racist. You're also not allowed to whitewash, which apparently that also applies to works of fiction where the creator has explicitly stated that the character in question is not supposed to look like a Japanese woman. I'm looking at you, people who criticised Ghost in the Shell, even though the creator endorsed Scarlett Johansson being cast as the main character. Jesus fucking Christ. This is clearly not a Japanese woman. You see how actual Japanese people are portrayed in the original? Notice a difference? Brown washing? Actually, wouldn't it be brown staining if we just went with the washing analogy? Makes me a bit uncomfortable, to be honest. Brown staining is okay though, because the patriarchy. Another thing you're not really supposed to do when you're directing films with diverse characters in them is be a white male, which the way society goes is generally considered a more and more disruptive activity to take part in these days. That being said, you can get away with it if you're Jewish, and also it's the least enforced of the rules. So it might be possible for you to do it anyway. The problems which arise from this are of course numerous, but for the sake of simplicity we'll stick to the story-related ones. First of all, if your character is always perfect at everything, they never have problems overcoming obstacles. This is why Mary Sues are universally despised, right? The basic element of a story is conflict, and for conflict to happen, your character has to overcome the conflict, something. And, you know, if it's difficult for them to do that, they will have to adapt, and then struggle, and then beat the odds, you know, and people enjoy seeing that. If your hyper-competent character just instantly overcomes any challenge that's thrown their way, the overcoming, that never happens. There's no interesting part of the story. Nobody's gonna watch a fucking film about some cunt doing the dishes. Anyone can do the dishes, right? There's no struggle or learning experience. Just as a quick disclaimer, I cannot do the dishes. I haven't done the dishes properly in a long time. It's pretty disgusting. The story becomes interesting when the bloke doing the dishes runs into problems, like when he sets the sink on fire, because he's a moron, or when he has to do the dishes with both his arms tied behind his back, like a seal, or a bloke with no arms. Actually, I'm pretty sure that People who have no arms can't get their arms tied behind their back. I don't think... I think that's not how it works, really. Which is a shame if you have a rope fetish, really. I mean... rope fetishes are a privilege. You know? The point is, the guy is doing the dishes, but now he also has to overcome an unexpected obstacle, right? And this works the same if you scale things up. If you have some cunt delivering hydrogen siphoned off the atmosphere of Jupiter to a fusion reactor back on Earth, and without incident completely. That's boring. Same goes for some dick standing guard at like the Imperial Palace of silvered gold, which was then gilded again. All day without anything happening at all. If you want a good story, you need trouble. The problem with hyper-competent characters is often that the trouble arises and then they deal with it. And that's all. You never get the chance to explore any other aspects of this character aside from they're really good at doing things. Which the audience already knows, and when they're good at something they shouldn't ordinarily be good at, that's a whole different problem, because in addition to all the previous things, you also go, I don't believe that. By the way, I'm not knocking competent characters here. I like competent characters more than most other character types, to be entirely honest. I like Geralt of Rivia and Adam Jensen because even though they're superhuman killing machines, they're presented with challenges that are still challenging at their power level, and they're also well-rounded, complete characters who have human, relatable flaws. Also, when your character always just succeeds as everything without any problems, the final success that essentially wins the story, it's just not rewarding for the audience because they don't feel like the character worked for it, right? Even if it's something huge and monumental, like saving the galaxy, they're gonna feel like, yeah, he was so good, he did all the time, everything, did no problems. I was pretty sure that this individual was able to deal with this situation and the crisis, because apparently he can do anything. Now let's talk about tokenism, which I think is a shitty practice and should die. But why? Well, if the only reason your character's in the show is because they're a woman, or trans, or Asian, or an alien, or Mexican, which, depending on how you interpret language, is the same thing, or a nig. If you have a character that's only got one character trait, and that's a superficial one, or where one character trait is so incredibly exaggerated and dominant in the personality that it might as well be the only one, it's a boring character. The novelty is worn out in seconds. One-dimensional characters are just fucking terrible because, you know, they do their thing and then it's done. You can't explore any further. It's just an endless void of nothing speckled with the occasional region of emptiness behind that aggressively flamboyant gay man exterior. This exterior is not the problem here, by the way. If the flamboyant gay man were a little deeper as a character, it would be fine. Like, for example, if the reason he's so incredibly aggressively flamboyant and in your face about his homosexuality was because he used to get bullied when he was younger, extremely, and he came to the conclusion that this was because he was showing people his true face, right? And his true face is weak and unlikable. And so he puts on this armor and he projects this appearance outward to protect himself. But that would require us to show the diverse character struggling, and that's against the rules, isn't it? Also, a collection of attributes does not a complex character make. If your flamboyant gay man does fly fishing and skydiving and eats off the plate clockwise and also speaks Korean, and if you think that's a complex character, then welcome back, Sean. Long time no see. I'm still mad at you, by the way, Sean. Honestly, like, I saw the leaks. I saw the reviews that happened in the days, you know, before. I saw it all, but I hoped. I still hoped somewhere, against all hope. and what you gave me was an ocean of tears, shallow as a pond. The point is, you have to round it all out. It has to be a complete package, and it has to work with each other. For example, Gay Man that we have here has low-level OCD. That's his thing, and he hides this in his flamboyance, right? But you will still see it because of he has a very symmetrical way of dressing almost. It's quite strange, and some of his movements seem a bit choreographed because he repeats them all the time. And really, when he's eating, he can't help himself. So even though he's trying to hide his OCD, which he knows he has, by the way, at the same place where his true face is, which he hopes nobody ever sees because he thinks it's terrible, it's still there. And it sometimes manifests and gives you, as the viewer, a clue as to the fact that it is there. Gay Man is incredibly compulsive about keeping this armor, this mask, just there to protect himself. And every time there is the tiniest fraction of a kink in this armor, he's absolutely fucking terrified, right? He's left entire social circles, entire lives behind, really, just because he slipped up once. And all of this is because he once met a dude online. He met a dude online, and he was from Korea. They never really met in person, but they spent so much time with each other in online chat rooms, right? He got to opening up to this man in a way that he'd never been able to do it with anyone else because there was this barrier of distance between them, right? And so he learned Korean, and he dreamt of moving there to be with the love of his life because he thought that man was the love of his life. But it turned out that it was just a couple dickhead school kids from Seoul who were playing a prank on him. This has convinced him further that his entire true personality is just a piece of shit and that it's not worth living. And so to project his mask, he just moves on from hobby to hobby to hobby to hobby before people get to know him better than he is comfortable with, right? That's how he ended up doing fly fishing, which is an incredibly odd hobby, because he's just recently started it, and the people in there, the people that he fly fishes with, or the people he interacts with, they're pretty much strangers still. And of course he skydives, not only because it projects a very extreme image of himself, but also because there's this tiny, this minute, almost impossible chance that the parachute won't open, and that finally his entire worthless existence might come to an end. And that is the true thrill for him every time he jumps out the plane. The point of all this is that you have to create deep, layered characters. And in those, I absolutely love diversity, because you can explore the gay man or transsexual people like a black guy from a low-income neighborhood. Those are new things that I find to be incredibly interesting. And it's true. If your main character is always a straight white man, you miss out on a huge variety of very interesting character concepts that you could explore if you do it well. And I'm not knocking straight white man characters at all, by the way. I love them. They can be hugely varied and interesting. Like, I love fucking Rust Cole, or Jimmy McNulty, Hank Moody, even Dean Winchester, right? They're great characters because they're complex, is really the point. I'm just saying there's a huge variety of other characters out there to explore. But if we're gonna explore those, we have to do it with honesty, right? You're not just gonna be a transsexual businessman in Victorian London and no one bats an eye. That doesn't happen. You're also not just going to be a black kid from the ghetto who got into Harvard because he's just that smart, without any sort of explanation for what exactly happened there, right? Shit like this does not occur in the real world, and hence, seeing as I want my audience to believe my story, I have to qualify that shit. You have to explain to me as the audience why this individual character has managed to be such an exception to the rule of the world he inhabits, right? Otherwise, I just won't believe he exists. That's why I also hugely enjoy characters like Nomi Marks, or Rayon, or Tyrion Lannister, or pretty much the entire cast of American Horror Story Freak Show, right? Because those diversity concepts were properly explored, honestly explored, and the fact that they were there had real tangible ramifications on the plot. And yes, I do watch Sense8. I like the show, even though its fandom is a huge SJW circle jerk. I think it's well crafted, it has good characters, it has pretty interesting plot lines. Honestly, it's a pretty much a step up for the Wachowskis since the abortion that was Jupiter Ascending. I create life! And if you do want your main character to be a transsexual black furry woman from outer space, and with nobody batting an eye about that, the world you set your story in will have to accommodate that, right? Maybe it's the future, and that shit is just normal, but you will still have to explain that to the audience, that it's all normal and everybody does it. Because in that situation, nobody would look at you weird or treat you any differently because, I mean, you're normal in that world. And if you change your entire world just because you want your character to be trans, without having to deal with all the pesky ramifications and all the baggage that's attached to that, people will know, and they will laugh at you, and they will expose you as the hack that you are. At the end of the day, I like diversity because it expands my options both as a consumer of stories, but also as a storyteller myself. But if I have to do diversity, and especially if I have to do diversity in a very special and narrow way, that defeats the entire purpose of giving me the creative freedom to do diverse characters in the first place, right? I'd rather every single character ever in every work of fiction for the rest of time, and also back, be a straight white man than subject myself to your fascism of artistic expression. What matters is that a character be complex, flawed, layered, and above all, built with honesty. And if you can't do that, you really shouldn't be doing characters at all. Well, this got pretty serious at the end, didn't it? Let's finish this installment off with a couple kicks for the road.
9/11.